when you feel overwhelmed or unfocused or have lost your focus temporarily, what do you do?
Yeah, I get overwhelmed. Losing focus, in that sense, I don't particularly lose focus. In the micro, I might lose focus in that moment. I get up and I come back to it later. Again, I have luxuries in doing that I recognize a lot of people don't necessarily have the luxury to just get up and get back to it later.
Sure.
But I do. But what I really do, because I do get overwhelmed and I get frustrated in the self-talk. It's about self-talk. You put it down on paper, and I say paper figuratively. I go to my email drafts and I type out what are the things that are bothering me in my mind. And it usually, once you put it on paper, it's 3 to 5. It's almost always not more than 3 or 5 things. It's not like it's a list of 20 things. It's usually 3 to 5 things. And when you put it on paper, and then again, it's about self-talk, but you start looking at the grand scheme of things and your maybe not even your full-on vision that's however long out, just your vision for that week or that month, it usually doesn't. Those things, once you put them on paper, it's like, okay, and you start systematically breaking down the problems of each of those things and figuring out what you're going to do to solve them and making the decision. For me, most of the time, the things that stress me out or that distract me or that are the things I haven't made a decision. I haven't come to a solution yet.
Yeah.
And so I write it down, and then usually by that point, it usually leads me, once it's on paper, to figuring out, how do I make a decision on that problem? How do I solve that problem?
Yeah.
Once the decision's made, I sleep like a baby. So I don't usually have sleep issues because I usually don't go to bed until I have a decision made. Not always.
It's interesting how we tend to, number one, be over dramatic in our heads of what's actually going on. But it's pretty incredible what happens when you simply just put it out and you be strategic about it. You come up with solutions because there's always a solution. There's always a solution for everything.
There's usually more than one. Like most situations, again, it's not black and white. It's not this or this. It's this, and this could be bad decisions, and this, and this. Any of those could be good decisions.
Yeah. It's an interesting perspective shift when you go from black and white and realizing most things are just somewhere in the gray.
Especially when most of us were raised in church in one form or another, and I believe very much so in church and in your walk with Christ or whatever religion you might be. For me, it's Christ. But you're taught in church, many churches growing up, that's not really what you're taught, in my opinion. I lost my overall thought on that, to be totally honest with you, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
We're taught. Speak to what you just said, because I lost my train of thought here.
So I was talking about the perspective shift that happens whenever we realize that things seem to be black and white, but in reality, most of it's in the gray.
If you look, most people consider faith, regardless of the faith, to be black and white.
Sure. And
figuring out as you get older that most things aren't black and white, nor is that faith you've been taught all your entire life. It's not even really black and white once you start looking at it. It's just taught in a lot of ways black and white. That's what I was getting at.
Oh boy, we could talk about that one for a long time
no
too.
Doubt. And that starts to get into the areas that I start to not be
a little fuzzy.
It starts to be a little fuzzier. But the point was religion is oftentimes black and white. Finding that balance between gray and black and white goes a long way and really helps. I believe can help you understand your attitudes and your mindsets.
And that's a big one, attitudes and mindsets. Cynthia Hernandez always says attitude and intent.
Yeah,
it's a real big one.
That matters a whole lot, more than most things.
Yeah.
And then the self-talk, going back to the question, our last question here, question 11, self-talk. When you're in your head, when you're stressing yourself, usually you're in your own head, it's self-talk. You've got to figure out how to get your self-talk corrected. Because if you're everybody has self-talk.
Sure.
I used to think that wasn't something everybody did, and I was just talking to myself and I was nuts, but it turns out everybody does that. But your self-talk, if you have negative self-talk, and I get into it too. I mean, I'll go from having happy self-talk to just suddenly on like some rant in my head, and it's like, how'd you get here?
But that's a great opportunity to employ the strategy you were talking about earlier. Just write it out.
Write it out. Exactly.
Just talk about it.
That's what my whiteboard is on a business, from a business standpoint.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, EJ, thank you so much for answering these 11 questions.
Chorby Chats #1.
Chorby Chats #1.
In the
Done.
books. Fantastic.
Well, everyone, I really hope that you enjoyed our conversation, got to know EJ a little bit better, as I know I did. And we will continue to have these conversations, not just with EJ. We'll have plenty of other guests on here. And the intention here is, like I said before, to cultivate the culture and create a healthy environment and to expose who we are. We want others to see who we are and what it's like to work here and be a part of this culture.
Absolutely. You know, as you and I have been strategizing, Jeremy and I and all three of us have been strategizing about what this podcast will be. We're starting with our sphere of influence. We're starting with our 125, give or take, team members here at White Picket. We're going to start there with this Chorby Chats. And we want to start there, see if we can make a difference. We want to influence, and that's why we're doing this. We're not doing this because I like the camera or you like the camera.
Sure.
We're doing this because we want to influence in a positive way our current sphere of influence, which is our team members. And hopefully, beyond that, it'll move on to future and current franchisees. And hopefully, beyond that, it'll move to the industry as a whole. And again, the goal here is to influence and teach, and hopefully we can learn something as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well said, my friend. Well said.
I love it.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone.
Make it a great day, everyone.
That's right. Take care.
Thank y'all.